Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello.
Now, did you know that the next big, massive media video game event is right around the corner?
What?
Which we didn't used to take Gamescom as massively seriously as we possibly could. But looking at the sort of recent developments as to the sort of plays that they're making, the fact that Jeff Keighley's having this big old live stream event to open the show, we thought, why not start thinking of it more like another E3?
There's a lot of people gone there, and there's going to be a lot of announcements. We just keep sleeping on it because we're bad people.
Well, we talked about it in the news the other day, and a lot of people sort of got in the comments and just said it would be kind of cool for the sake of competition if Gamescom stepped up a little bit more and started trying to take on E3, especially as E3 seems to be kind of falling apart a little bit and losing Sony, whereas they've confirmed they're going to be at Gamescom. So we thought we'd put together some random rumors, tidbits, things like that, backed up by little interview snippets and things that have happened in the last few months as to the biggest possible announcements that could come out of Gamescom, which is what we did before E3. So we're just going to go in tandem. Josh is going to start. What's your biggest thing, sir?
My biggest thing is that finally, after so many months of teasing,
Go on.
Marvel announced their MGU, otherwise known as the Marvel Gaming Universe, or as is now known, the Marvel Gamerverse. So this has kind of been a thing that has been around ever since Spidey kicked things off last year with Insomniac's take on Spider-Man, the first Marvel game since the company got the rights back from Activision, and everything about that title seemed to tease a wider universe of heroes. There were Easter eggs all over the shop in-game, and the creative director, Brian Intihar, mentioned that you should look at this game as the Iron Man of the video game universe, referencing kind of like ground zero for a version of the cinematic universe, but in the gaming sphere. But then,
Go on.
nothing has really happened, okay?
Nothing much.
Square Enix have announced their Avengers title, but they haven't really teased any connections to anything, and they haven't even mentioned Spider-Man. But I take it to you that on Gamescom stage, Square Enix are there. They're going to show gameplay of the Avengers. We know this.
Yes.
What if at the end there's a little teaser, Spider-Man flips in, and he's got the white suit because it's Insomniac Spider-Man, and they finally confirmed that while he might not be a major part of the game, he exists.
He's in there.
They all exist in the same universe.
Because
This is the MGU.
as well, that's already been referenced, the fact that if you play Spider-Man and you go next to the Avengers Tower, he does reference, hey, it's those guys that are probably on the West Coast. And this is the West Coast Avengers.
Yes.
So those things are kind of already in place. Obviously, it was an Easter egg beforehand, but with the creative director for Spider-Man saying like, hey, look, if we manage to nail our installment, maybe these things can go forward. It makes sense that Marvel would, start to reclaim the gaming side of things alongside the movies, especially if the movies, their big whole endgame first phase thing is kind of coming to an end. Why can't the next phase be gaming?
They're never ever going to do this, right? This is just me going crazy with predictions. But what if in the Avengers you have one level where Spider-Man guests and you just play a level as him, and it would
Like
be
the
awesome
MJ level.
and the best.
As one
Like the
plays
MJ
Thor,
level.
have Spider-Man swing in, get Yuri Lowenthal back. He likes playing the character. He's been him in a few different things.
MGU
Why not?
confirmed. This is going to happen. Absolutely. 100%.
We're going to attempt to one-up each other for each one of these. So the next one is, now a lot of people, we don't know the name of this studio, but Sony have a new first-party studio made up of ex-Naughty Dog people and ex-different Sony staffers that have worked on various Sony exclusives from over the years. So there is a new Sony first-party studio, but with it not being a name, it's kind of under wraps. If you go on a little Google hunt, you'll find evidence of it, and you'll find different staff members there tweeting out saying, hey, we're getting a team together, and look at us with the PlayStation logo, and we're doing something. So the thing that I think that, one, either we'll just see what that company is. They'll give them a new name and say they're working on stuff, like what Microsoft did with their various acquisitions kind of thing. Or we'll get Uncharted 5. And I think that'll be the first sort of step forward as to what they're going to do with the rest of the Uncharted series. Troy Baker carries over from Nolan North. They retire the Nathan Drake character, move forward with Sam.
Move forward.
That's the way Uncharted 4 ends, I think. Well, either move forward with Sam, because that's how Uncharted 4 ends, or you keep going with Cassie.
Yes.
And I would prefer Cassie Drake. I think she has more range and she has more possibilities than someone like Sam.
What if?
But you never know.
What if we do both? What if the new dynamic of Nate and Sully becomes Cassie and Sam? Sam is the older, wiser
That's
mentor.
a good shout.
And then they go through and they have that. It'll be very, very Uncharted with new characters.
You know what? You could jump forward and you could give Troy Baker a slightly older role. I mean, he managed to pull off Ocelot pretty well, and he's like in his 50s or whatever he is at this point. Although I guess he wasn't back in Phantom Pain, but still, he's played older roles before. Yeah, I like the idea of that. Basically, I think they're going to keep going forward with Uncharted 5, and that seems to be the main title rumored for this new first-party studio, because Naughty Dog have said that they're done with Uncharted.
I would very much like Uncharted to come back. With a brand new set of characters, I think Nathan Drake's story ended perfectly with Uncharted 4. For me, it might be a bit too soon. We haven't even had The Last of Us Part 2, but there's an announcement for the future. I mean, PlayStation are going to want to start teasing what they're doing with PS5, and if they have an Uncharted 5 ready at some point for that console,
it would make sense.
That would be awesome.
Speaking of Sony, though.
Well, here's the thing.
And
we actually covered this in a news story earlier this week, and it's the fact that Death Stranding now looks like it's not going to be a PlayStation exclusive anymore. It seems almost certain that it's going to be multi-platform, at least. That's what eagle-eyed commenters over at Reset Era sort of think, because it's been delisted as a PS4 exclusive, which has led many of us to believe that it's also going to come to PC, which will be a huge win, because although I love exclusives and a lot of games wouldn't get made without the backing of the platform holders who actually, fund these projects, the fact of the matter is I want everyone to play Death Stranding. And if that means...
everyone to experience the TBs and the BTs and the, the dead babies and all that.
And it seems almost kind of like locked in, because Sony don't own Kojima Productions. They are a second-party studio, and second-party titles like Ni no Kuni 2 and Nier Automata and Street Fighter 5 launched on PS4 and PC simultaneously, which makes me think they could do it here.
We will resume this. One of the points is that Death Stranding is multi-platform, but we will resume this with a more specific idea of which the platform could be. One thing to throw in just for the Death Stranding point being multi-platform in general, though, is that Kojima did state back in 2015 that after it came to PS4, it would then go to PC. That was then not commented on, and it was listed as a true exclusive on the various official PlayStation websites, delisted in May 26th. But that's the thing. If it was always in reference to PC in terms of the multi-platform thing, why would you ever list it, and then why would you delist it? It seems like something's been done.
This is kind of the major problem. It's a weird way to go about it, especially a few months from launch, to suddenly say, it's also coming to PC. But at the same time, like I said in the news video, Kojima is a madman and can do what he wants.
He seems to be able to bend reality to his whim. Speaking of bending reality to your whim, what if Sony go back in the handheld market with a Vita 2? Because, don't give me a meh, it's the best thing. What if there was a playable version of Death Stranding on the Vita?
Oh, I'd buy it.
Well, there you go. You play as a little BT, you just sort of swim around. But yeah, I think looking at the fact that the Switch Lights just came out, the fact that Nintendo are kind of eating their own audience in terms of we're going to kind of half replace the 3DS with this little Nintendo Switch Lite thing, it kind of makes sense, because all Sony ever do is copy the competition in a nice way, in a good way, unless it's their first-party studios, in terms of doing trophies or going on doing the streaming tech or whatever. They tend to look at what works and then they do their own version of it. So I think with Nintendo releasing the Switch Lite to kind of take the place of the 3DS, it would make sense for them to go, you know what, we nailed the design because the Vita is brilliant, and finally do a Vita 2, all singing, all dancing, perfect.
Well, that's it. I mean, like you said, the Vita, for the people who own the Vita, love the Vita. It's just a hard sell to everyone else, myself included. But I think they have got such a good bit of kit. No, because they don't even support it anymore, Scott. And I'm going to wait for the Vita 2.
Thing is, right, that's the thing. To round this off, they did discontinue the original Vita's production back in September of 2018, but that system can play PS1 games, PS2 games, some PS3 games, and a whole bunch of PS4 ports. You can also use it as a remote control thing.
I'm not going to hoo-ha the quality of the Vita. I'm sure it's really good, and I think they actually might have to make a Vita 2, because Microsoft look like they're going to make their own.
That segue, go on. I did.
Well, this is according to a patent that was filed back in July, I think, that they were looking to create this kind of smartphone hybrid thing where you've got this screen that you can plug two kind of controllers into, and you can play, Xbox One games on it. It's kind of going to be a competitor to the Nintendo Switch, and someone really lovingly called Sarang Chef, editor of Yanko Design, knocked up some designs that you can see. They did a render, some concept sketches based on the information that was released in those patents, and it looks kind of mad, and it's kind of interesting for Microsoft to do, because while Sony and Nintendo, I guess, have kind of diversified their brand, they haven't just released consoles, they've done other things, like Sony have done VR, Sony have done the Vita. Whether they were successful, you can argue that, but Microsoft have been very content to just create consoles and then create variations on them, and they haven't branched off in a long time.
It's weird.
And I think they could start doing it right.
Yeah. I mean, they tried to do HoloLens. It didn't really have much traction. They were like, we're going to reboot Conquer and put him back out on HoloLens, and everyone went, what the hell are you doing? And they sort of just stepped back for a while. But something like this, I mean, Phil Spencer's been talking loads about the power of xCloud and how if they get their server capabilities up, then you'll be able to just stream games from their, the servers or whatever, straight onto your phone. Now, the concept sketches will put them on screen. It just looks like an Xbox controller split in two.
Yeah.
More streamlined, more like a portable sort of like an oblong kind of shape, clipping into the side of a phone. I don't believe that they'll ever get the signal strength to work, but that's not necessarily the point. It seems like they've filed these patents, so something is happening in regards to Xbox and portable gaming.
That's it. I mean, and you know what? I'm here for it. Ever since the Switch, I've done a complete 180 on portable gaming. I love it now. I used to hate it and resent it. I used to think, why would I want to play anything on a tiny little screen on a train when I could just plug my telly in and sit back on my couch in my my pants.
No, but you haven't got a TV on the train, have you?
No, but I do now.
That's what I'm saying.
This is a big screen.
Been telling him for 20 years, I have.
Come on, man.
Since he was born. Another thing that I think will just happen, because we've seen so many rumors and random little tidbits and stuff about it, is the premium Switch. Because it always seemed like there were 2 additional Switches being rumored, being talked about, and all we got was the Nintendo Switch Lite.
Yes.
So I think there'll be a 4K version of the Switch, something to compete with the upper echelons of console gaming, and I think they'll drop that.
This is something I saw quite a lot when I was doing the rumors for E3 and when I was doing those videos, because like you said, there were originally 2 different versions of the Switch that were kind of rumored to be in production, and I would like a beefier Switch, to be honest. I think the Switch now, when you dock it to a TV, looks absolutely gorgeous when you run it on like a 4K television. It's kind of up-res, but I want, to see Breath of the Wild in not native 4K, but at least upscale 4K and more powerful. I would probably buy that definitely over a smaller version.
I think, speaking of Breath of the Wild as well, they obviously confirmed Breath of the Wild 2. We got the little teaser at E3. Looking at the previous release schedules or the calendars for Zelda in general, the next Zelda would assumedly drop in 2021. It's been every 2 years for the last 10 years at least. Triforce Heroes is in 2015. We had Breath of the Wild in 2017. We got Link's Awakening this year. And that would make sense to then do Breath of the Wild in 2021. Now, to shift a new system, if you put Breath of the Wild 2 on this new premium Switch, not saying it won't run on the original, but if the game just looks more gorgeous, if there's a bigger reason to invest in this big visual, sort of experience, I think that makes sense as a system selling launch game. So my dropping shout, the thing I'm dropping here, JP, is that I think there's going to be a new premium Switch and they're going to confirm Breath of the Wild 2 for 2021.
That would be awesome. Is that not too many things for a customer like me to consider, though? Because that's a lot of Switches, Scott.
It is, but you got there. It just took you like half a year, but you loved it when you got there.
I really, really did.
Also, considering that when Breath of the Wild came out, it was also on the Wii U, and then I love when Nintendo tried to put a list together of all the great features that are on the Switch version, and it was like, why should we invest in the Switch? And it was like, well, the wind noise is good, and I think the grass moved differently or something like that. It was minuscule stuff, but the Switch version was better.
Well, speaking of streaming.
Go on.
We all know, this is kind of linked to the Death Stranding tidbit that we just teased, is that we know Google Stadia have been doing things behind the scenes. We know they have been partnering with pretty much everyone to get high quality games on their system. But what if they come out and announce that they've bought a major first party franchise, they've swayed someone to come over to their side, and they've got a big IP and they're about to announce it to the entire world because Google have a lot of money.
They have as much, they can buy whatever they want.
Have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
And this model has, for better or worse, really succeeded for Epic Games in their store. They have nabbed up exclusives. People haven't been happy about it, but it's made them a lot of money. It's gotten them a lot of promotion. Google need to do something similar, I think. And although they are investing in their own IPs and first-party games, the biggest win for them would be just to nab someone else's. And I don't really want it to happen.
No.
Because like I said earlier, I want people to play as many games as possible. But at the same time, it kind of, to me, feels inevitable. And that links to Death Stranding because the executive of the Stadia's entire sort of business approach, Jade Raymond, she was spotted in a photograph with Hideo Kojima Productions. Why were them
the
two
smoking gun?
If not, and then,
The thing is, this all kind of lines up in as much as, like you said, Google need a big win. We know that Death Stranding is going to show something. It was something like a special look at the game, whether it's gameplay footage or whatever. It's probably going to be another random character, but that would line up with the idea that it's been delisted as an exclusive, because as much as the PC sometimes doesn't count as a platform when we talk about exclusives, maybe Google Stadia does. Their logo's been right alongside the Switch logo, the Xbox logo. So what if Death Stranding's other platform is Google Stadia? And now that's the deal that they've made. That's Jade Raymond's deal. That's the thing that's going to happen for the rest of the year. We know Stadia's going to be launching, so maybe they have 4K fancy version of Death Stranding alongside it.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't think I want it. I don't think it'll run, but it's fine because we have the PS4, which will run it. So my next thing, we're just going to go into full realms of why not, because this is the most fun part about this stuff. You can always predict a whole bunch of things. Didn't think that G.R.R. Martin plus From Software would ever make a game, and that came true. So why not? I'm going to say in CDP, I'm going to say CDP. I'm going to say that.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to say that CD Projekt Red are going to show up, even though they're not listed on Jeff Keighley's show thing. But I think they're going to show up. We know that Cyberpunk's going to be there on the show floor. They're going to have this big game booth thing that a whole bunch of the public are going to check out. I think they'll drop something in the middle of the live show, in the middle of the opening night live thing with Jeff Keighley. And it's not just going to be any old thing.
Come on, because you need to talk me through this, because I saw this written down, and you need to explain this to me and the people.
So CDPR are very much aware that the Witcher franchise is obviously associated with them. They know that the Netflix thing is going forward. They know that a lot of people want more Witcher, and they have said the Geralt story is done, but they're not done with the world. So, judging by the way that The Witcher ends, we see Ciri go off and become another Witcher. I think they'll open a little teaser. I mean, I totally don't think this, but it's good fun. I think they'll open a nice little teaser trailer showing Ciri. You'll just see her sort of getting off the ground and sort of like gathering herself. She's dressed in the same garb that we've usually seen, and she starts to walk forward. We then realize that she's in the cyberpunk city, which is a nice little tie into the old Easter egg that's in The Witcher 3, where at the end of The Witcher, Ciri comes back from teleporting around everywhere, and she says, oh, I just came from somewhere, and I saw these people with metal in their heads. That's what that is. That's what she saw. It was cyberpunk. They're all connected. CDPR is one big old gaming universe. Balls to the MGU. It's the CDPR-U.
That would break me in the worst possible ways. Don't ever want that to happen, but CD Projekt Red have said they have like 3 cyberpunk games in development.
I'm sure they said there's a Witcher-based announcement coming as well, which is nearly always related to Gwent, but...
You know what? That would break the internet. I'm not sure for the correct reasons.
I think it's a nice little harmless thing. We get to see Ciri again. We get to have a nice little tie-in, and why can't they be connected?
Right, you've gone too big with that one, because my next one isn't so big. My next one is just that Capcom come out and announce Resident Evil 8.
That's pretty big.
That would be pretty big for me. I would, crap my pants with joy, because we know that they have at least one Resident Evil game in development. We found out the other day that the Resident Evil Ambassador system is recruiting people to test out a game this September set in the Resident Evil universe. The question remains whether this is going to be Resident Evil 3 or Resident Evil 8, because as weird as it sounds, both are equally viable. You would assume that Capcom have been working on an 8th installment at least since the 7th installment shipped. But they would have a heads up on the 3rd remake if they wanted to create that next, because they already have the assets by making 2, and everyone loved 2, so why wouldn't they want to double down on that?
Speaking of 2, though, let me throw some logs on this blazing inferno, because judging by the way that Resident Evil 2 sold, which they said they were very impressed by or very excited by, I think they'll go back to the third-person style for Resident Evil 8. I like that Resident Evil 7 was a nice experiment with first-person. They always said that they planned on doing a first-person game anyway. It wasn't just that PT blew up. It wasn't just that Outlast was out, or all these different games like Slender Man. It wasn't that the new in vogue way to do horror was first-person. They were always, oh no, we were always going to do that. And you can go back, you can look at different sort of inspirations for the original Resident Evil. There are some things that point to a first-person Resi, but it made its name in third person. Yes. And I think they'll bring back the third-person stuff. I also think that will be a major win for the fandom.
As much as I'm not convinced that they should return to it, I think they absolutely will. Yes. And I think they'll announce it in classic Resident Evil style, where they don't upfront tell you that what you're seeing is a Resident Evil game. I think it'll be third-person, atmospheric, but not in the same way that Resident Evil 2 is. It'll be set in this grittier, new version of the world that they made with Resident Evil 7, and then eventually you will see an iconic monster, or maybe the molded from Resident Evil 7 back,
that'd be cool.
And then it will come up, Resident Evil 8, and it'll be in that world, but it'll be third person.
Considering how much Resi 7 kind of feels like its own isolated little adventure, it feels like a movie thing. It's like sort of just this isolated, this whole tale about, like disparate souls in a cabin and doing whatever. I think Resi 8 will have its own separate scenario, and like you said, you won't realize what it is until it just cuts to black, like that Blair Witch thing. Yeah. And we just get the Resident Evil 8 logo. I would hope that they do something to sort of show what the gameplay is going to be like, just for the sake of addressing, the 2 splitting sides of the fandom that we've got, the first-person stuff and everything else. So maybe. My number 1, which is something that I forgot was even a thing until I started looking into projects that have been announced and hadn't come true, is Tekken Cross Street Fighter. Not Street Fighter Cross Tekken. The other one. Because back in 2010, Katsuhiro Harada, who's the Tekken's sort of like leading man kind of thing, announced this whole thing in 2010 that they were going to do this big old crossover with Capcom, and that the Namco and Capcom were joining forces, and that they were going to do one Street Fighter-based game with Tekken characters in it, and one Tekken-based game with Street Fighter characters in it. And we got one of them. We got Street Fighter Cross Tekken in 2012, which included, like Kazuya and Heihachi and whatever, but the gameplay, the engine was Street Fighter. It was nice, it was neat, it was very Street Fighter 4 style, very inky, very sort of like, very artistic. It was really cool, but it wasn't Tekken. No. And ever since then, Katsuhiro's been asked about these things, and he said that it didn't make sense, as of 2016, to keep going with it, because Tekken 7 is doing so well. And so, like, the amount of DLC that they've put out for it, the fact that it keeps continuing to do well, they have all these different guest character trailers, like Negan's in there and whatever. He said it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But as of 2016, apparently Tekken Cross Street Fighter was 30% done.
Yeah, I saw
So they have enough for a logo.
That's what I want. Do we need this game, Scott?
Yes!
Tell me this. Look.
What?
Right. Both these franchises, like you said, Tekken is doing very well.
Yes.
Street Fighter 5 is it's doing. So I don't really know if we need this, man. We've been talking about it, like you said, since 2010. Ali is going to push it out the door. Will anyone still care about this crossover
Well,
almost 10 years later?
Unlike Rockstar's agent, they haven't canned it. Like, at least they stopped registering the trademark. This thing still exists, and Harada's been talking about it. So it's like, what does Tekken do next? They're not going to announce Tekken 8 because there's not enough time since Tekken 7. And I know that Harada said he'd have to devote so much time to putting into Tekken Cross Street Fighter, but I think it makes a whole lot of sense. And someone like Namco could do with the win. Capcom, sorry, could do with the win because Street Fighter 5 did not go down very well, and it's recovered a little bit, but it was a bit of a shamble.
Yeah.
And if you did a game in the Tekken engine, but you can play as the likes of Ryu, Ken, Kami, Chun-Li, whatever, that would be a really big win.
That's the one for me, because when Street Fighter Cross Tekken came out, I was in love with the idea of it, but I'm so bad at Street Fighter's fighting mechanics that I just couldn't get around to picking it up. Whereas if it's the other way around, if it's Tekken's mechanics in Street Fighter characters are cameoing in it, or co-starring in it, that is something I would be interested in. I'm just not sure it's for me after 10 years of teasing.
I think it's something for the comments as to whether Street Fighter is better than Tekken and whether you were satisfied with the Street Fighter version or if you still want something that is Tekken with Street Fighter characters. For now, though, this has been our roundup of all the different announcements and potential things that could break the internet. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. But for now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.